Hi, and welcome to another ElderWatch mini-series. This series is called Simple Tips to Keep Your Money and Identity Safe in a Digital World. And today we're covering Computer Safety Tools Part 2. So if you missed Part 1, go back. They're in that order for a reason. But thanks for being here regardless. Let's get into it. This series is brought to you by ElderWatch. ElderWatch is a 20-plus year collaboration between AARP and the Colorado Attorney General's Office. We work to protect and educate Coloradans 50 plus in the realms of fraud and financial literacy. If you or someone you know may have experienced fraud or a scam, or maybe your neighbor thinks they're talking to Johnny Depp online and you're not so sure that it's Johnny Depp, go ahead and give us a phone call. Our phone number is 800-222-4444. Select option 2. My name is Jessica Zawadsky, and I am the Program Specialist for ElderWatch Colorado. Today, we're going to continue with different things that you can use while you're using the internet to keep your money and identity safe. So first, we're going to talk about what is a firewall. After that, we're going to talk about pop-up scams. Following that, we're going to talk about whether a warning that you received on your computer, whether it's a pop-up ad or not, is real or if it's potentially a scam. We will also talk about remote viewing software, which in itself is not always a scam, but it's a tool that scammers in tech virus and computer support scams will often use. So we'll kind of go over what that is. Following that, we'll talk about what is a computer scrub. Then I'll tell you about the dangers of public Wi-Fi, and then we will end with a small but mighty tip for computer safety. A computer firewall is a protective measure that you can put onto your computer, and it's sort of like a security guard at a gated community or an apartment complex. So based on a certain set of parameters, in this case, it might be who is on a visitor list or who has a particular badge. Certain people will be allowed into the community while others are not. Now, in practical terms, you might be blocked from reaching certain websites at work. So for example, on your work computer, maybe you can't use Facebook. But a firewall can also prevent certain things from leaving your computer, certain people from having access to your computer, in addition to preventing you from going to certain places on the web. Now, the rules for where you can go and what can come into and leave your computer can be based on a lot of different things. For example, it can be based on keywords or domain names, which are like the fancy word for web addresses. It can even be based on IP addresses. To learn more about IP addresses, go back to part 1 of Computer Safety Tools, but essentially, a firewall prevents and filters what comes into, what goes out of your computer, as well as where you can go on your computer and who can access you on your computer. Pop-up scams and tech support / virus scams are very scary, and they are very effective in terms of scammers convincing us to do what they are asking us to do. And as a result, they are almost always in our top 10, if not top 5 scam types that we receive in terms of call volume. So the way that the scam works, there's some nuance in it, but you can see some examples of what this looks like to my right, right next to me in this screen. Sometimes your entire computer will just go black or go blue, and it will say like you have a virus and it's error code, like whatever, and call us at this number. Sometimes it is like pop-up ad in the bottom corner, and this can also happen on your phone as well. Sometimes it's accompanied by like a siren or a blaring sound, and this is part of why they're always in our top 10, because it's very effective, it's very scary, and they do what we call getting you under the ether, which means getting you into that fight, flight, freeze mode. It feels like an emergency, you're scared, you're activated, and you're ready to act without necessarily weighing your options because it feels like an emergency situation. On the next slide, we're going to talk about some of the ways you can figure out whether the pop-up or the virus alert that you've received is real or not. But kind of the biggest thing that I want to stress is that Google and Microsoft, who are often the businesses that people are pretending to be when it comes to pop-up scams, they are like 98% of the time not going to call you for this specific issue. Google or Microsoft might call you for something else, but when it comes to a tech support virus issue, they're not going to call you, one. And then two, they're definitely not going to ask you for personal information. So that's kind of the background to what this scam is. Let's look into how to figure out whether this is legit or not and what you should do if you receive this scam. So, unfortunately, computer viruses are real, just tech support scams are also real. So, how can you tell if the pop-up ad that you're getting is real or not? And so one of the first tried and true ways of knowing is unfortunately starting to fade a little bit as AI reduces things like grammatical errors, but that's my very first tip. If you get a pop-up ad and the grammar is off or the spelling is off or it's super informal but it's coming from Google or Microsoft, it's a scam, period, full stop. They have whole teams of people who ensure that the tone, the spelling, the grammar, all of those things are perfect. So if you find that in a pop-up ad, no matter how scary it is, no matter how loud it is a scam. And the next thing I want to say is that Microsoft, Google, really any of these big companies, they're not going to ask you for your personal information. So think about it this way. Did you have to provide your social security number to set up a Microsoft or Google account? No, you did not. So there's no reason that Google would ask for that to verify your identity. So if they do, big red flag, hang up, disengage. Now, unfortunately, one way that scammers will often convince their victims in a tech support scam that they are a legitimate organization is by having some of the victim's information already. So, for example, somebody pretending to be, I don't know, who do I want to say? Somebody pretending to be Bing, the search engine, might call you and say that, they have, here's your driver's license number and here's the last four of your social. Now, just because they have that information doesn't mean that it's a legitimate organization, that it's really that person calling you. Unfortunately, we here at ElderWatch and FraudWatch Network, we say it's not if, but when your data kind of gets leaked or you're part of a data breach. So a scammer could have this information, but they don't have all of the pieces of the puzzle. In this case, they're quite literally fishing for more information. So just because somebody can read you the last four of your social or your driver's license number does not mean that they are who they say they are. Now, while we're on this subject, I do also want to give some more information about tech support and virus scams in general, because they're not always going to come in as a pop-up ad or like the blue screen of death. They might also come in as a phone call, as a text message, or as an email. So some other signs that it's a scam when it's not the pop-up window are one, an unsolicited call from someone that you don't have an account with. So for example, if you don't have LifeLock and you get a call from someone saying that they're LifeLock and that they found a security issue, it's not LifeLock. These are businesses. They're not just, doing things out of the kindness of their heart. So if you don't have an account with an organization and somebody calls you from the organization saying that there's a problem, no, it's a scam. Another one is that if you get a call like on the phone mostly on the phone, also maybe via email. But if you get contacted by one of these organizations and they simply address you as dear customer and they never use your real name, that's pretty suspicious. If it's really the organization, they're going to have your name. So this is maybe like not the top warning sign that it's a scam, but it's definitely something that's suspicious and might indicate that it is a scam. Additionally, if you are being asked to pay an exorbitant fee for something, so for example, if you have an identity protection software, it costs $50 a year, and on the phone they say that they need $300, or they say you haven't paid, and so now it's up to $1,000. that's probably a scam. If you're only paying $50 per year and you didn't pay, like, they're going to cancel your subscription. Again, it's a business. So asking for an exorbitant fee that is significantly larger than like what you would normally pay indicates that you are dealing with a scammer and not the legitimate company. And the last kind of tip that I want to give you for figuring out whether that scam that's coming from tech support is real or not is, let's say that, okay, who do I want to pretend to be? Let's say I'm pretending I'm Norton. So I'm a scammer who's pretending to be Norton, and I call you and I say, oh, we see this charge on your account for $700, and we thought that was a little suspicious. So we're trying to get to the end of it. If you then go check your bank statements and you do not see this charge, it's a scam. Again, they're using that $700 charge to scare you, because that, is kind of a lot of money, and it might also lead you to provide some information because you want to protect your account. But if you check all of your bank statements and you don't see that $700 has gone from any of your banks, this is unfortunately just a tactic to try to get more information, and it's pretty much definitely a scam. So a very common component of tech support scams, in the form of the pop-up windows or when your whole screen goes black or blue, is remote viewing. Now, by itself, remote viewing is not necessarily sinister. It does have some legitimate applications, but if one of these companies calls you and asks you to download this software, so you're not the one who initiated it, it's probably a scam. But the way that remote viewing software works is kind of how it sounds. So it allows someone to see what you are seeing on your computer from a different location. So for example, our IT uses remote viewing software. So if I am having an issue, or if I, for example, need to download new software, they're able to see what's on my computer so that they can see what the issue is. And then they're also able to put that software on there for me. But again, Google and Microsoft, they're not going to do this for you. And then also, if you think about it, they're not in the space of tech support or computer viruses, right? That's not what those companies do. So they wouldn't ask to be able to remote access into your computer. Tech support scams are not the only place where we see these issues, but I do really want to emphasize why this is a really big deal and why you shouldn't let just anyone remote access into your computer, because think of all the things that are on your computer. So if you've seen the last video, Computer Safety Tools Part 1, we talked a little bit about cookies, browser history, things like that. But some of the things that are also stored on your computer include your email, which contains just a plethora of information about you. Your bank account login information might be on your computer. Your passwords might be saved on your computer. There's just so many things. And once you let someone remote access in, you don't really have control of where they go on your computer. All right, so if you've been through a tech support scam or a virus scam, first off, I'm really sorry. They are really sinister, they are really fast, and they are really scary. But if you have had that experience, a computer scrub is probably a really, really, really good idea for you. Now, there can be some nuance in like what a computer scrub does depending on why you're doing it, but generally a computer scrub will remove everything from your computer. So it's going to remove things you didn't install, like spyware, malware, viruses, that kind of thing. It will remove that remote viewing software, because unfortunately, sometimes once you do it once, scammers are able to still like see all your stuff and manipulate your stuff. But the kind of bad side is, depending again on why you're doing it and how it's being done, it might delete all of your personal files. So like photos, logins, things like that. So that's what they do. If you are going to do a computer scrub, I would strongly recommend going somewhere in person. All right, so the last computer safety tool that I want to share with you is about public Wi-Fi. And what I mean is, do not use public Wi-Fi if you can avoid it. at all. So when I say public Wi-Fi, I mean the Wi-Fi that's at, for example, an airport or a coffee shop. And I'm especially talking about a Wi-Fi network that is not password protected. So there can be public Wi-Fi that is password protected and that is still leaves you vulnerable, but the public Wi-Fi with no password is like the worst case scenario. No, 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 no. Now, like a lot of slash really all of the topics we're covering in this series, I'm kind of just scratching the surface. So there is way more to this concept. But what I want you to know is that public Wi-Fi itself isn't necessarily inherently dangerous. But the problem is people who are on the Wi-Fi. So on public Wi-Fi, it's much easier for hackers, scammers, etc., to see what you're doing and intercept information. So, for example, let's say that you are trying to log into your bank account and you're using that public Wi-Fi. It's going to be much easier for a scammer, a hacker, whoever to intercept that information and see what you're doing and gain access to those accounts because public Wi-Fi is not encrypted. It is the opposite of a VPN. It has none of those safety features. Sometimes hackers will also do what is called the evil twin attack, which is truly awful. And so basically what this is that they will set up a Wi-Fi connection with a name that is very, very, very similar to what you would expect the public Wi-Fi of a particular institution to be. So for example, let's say that you are at Safeway, the grocery store, and the real Safeway public Wi-Fi is Safeway Guest. Now, the evil twin Wi-Fi set up by a hacker to try to see what you're doing and get your data might be called Safeway Valued Guest or Safeway Customer or Safeway Shopper. And without asking an employee of Safeway, that might look pretty legit. You might not think twice about clicking into that Wi-Fi network, but unfortunately now you have essentially given your data away and really lessened your privacy online. All right, so your small but mighty tip in this episode is to understand and avoid public charging stations for like your phone because of potential juice jacking. So if you've ever been to the airport within the last, I'm going to say like 5 years, have you seen those big mobile charging stations? They're like big towers, and sometimes they'll have like the cords coming out of them with the particular connector that you need to charge your phone. Now, if you've been watching movies on the plane or you need to call someone or get an Uber, you might really, really need one of those. And they might seem like a lifesaver, but unfortunately, kind of like how the skimmers work on credit cards, these charging stations can also be manipulated by scammers to infect your device. So, okay, Jess, so that's what juice jacking is. It's when one of those charging stations has been manipulated, and so now it's able to transmit a virus or malware or remote viewing software onto your phone. So by themselves, those charging things are not bad, but when they are manipulated, which they can be very easily because anyone in the entire airport can access them, right? That's when they become a problem. So what do you do if you need to charge your phone while you're traveling? First, I'm going to say consider packing your own phone charger, including the little like QB thing that you plug into the wall. Additionally, consider packing a phone charger external battery. So the way that there's a couple different ones, but the way that it works is essentially you plug in to the battery and then it charges your phone, and that way you don't need an outlet necessarily to make that work. Additionally, if you do have to use a public charging station, it happens. Sometimes you can't avoid these things. If it asks you whether you trust this device or whether you want to give it access, say no. That's kind of the biggest way that you can stay safe from the potential of juice jacking. Now, if this video in particular, has prompted some concerns that maybe it wasn't really Google or Microsoft or Norton or LifeLock or whoever that called you and you're now concerned about your identity being compromised, give us a phone call. Our phone number is 800-222-4444. Select option 2. We can definitely help you with reporting, helping to protect your identity, and figuring out whether it was a scam or if it was legit. I also, as I've been doing with other videos in this series, I want to plug Senior Planet because they are a great resource if you need some help doing the technical side of these computer safety tools. So you'll see their number right there, but I've also included some information about them in the description for this video. For all of us at ElderWatch, thank you for joining me. Depending on the order you're watching this in, the other topics we'll be talking about are the pros and cons of automation, phishing, smishing, vishing, and robocalls, and multi-factor authentication and password managers. So make sure you tune in to the rest of the series as well.